It's Brunchin with Marinaro, which has become custom on Sunday mornings, presented by Cherry River Hard Seltzer. Only 90 calories, by the way, natural flavors, no preservatives. Cherry River is the vegan hard seltzer, sure to satisfy your taste buds, now available in Quebec grocery stores and at the beer store as well. Today, joining us, not for the first time, but for the first time on a Sunday morning on Brunchin with Marinaro, as he's trying to fix his camera there. Brendan Kelly from the Montreal Gazette. What the puck? What's going on?
Just wanted to show my Ramones t-shirt there, Tony.
Okay, I just want to show my Pazzo t-shirt. By the way, Pazzo, an Italian word for crazy. And so I thought it was fitting today, knowing that you and I are, some would say that we're pretty unconventional.
We are totally unconventional. Two great contrarians, Tony. That's why we get along so well.
You know what? You're not wrong about that. You've always been, for me, number 2 in the city.
Number 2, that's not bad. Hey, you grew up in LaSalle, right?
Yes.
I grew up in Lachine.
Oh, you grew up in Lachine?
I grew up with your people, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah,
we're Italian neighborhood, Western Lachine.
Yes, of course. We're close by. I have a lot of friends in Lachine. All right, okay. The Canadiens, another game, another loss. You know, Brendan, at one point, we didn't know exactly what the plan was, and we all thought it was a joke. I think it's safe to say we all do know what the plan is now. This is a plan that I've supported since 2009. It's called the tank. This one this year is happening a little bit organically. Carey Price doesn't start the season. He hasn't played a game yet. Shea Weber's unofficially retired. Joel Edmondson hasn't played a game yet this season. Paul Byron hasn't played a game yet this season. Jonathan Drouin was out for an extended period of time. Tyler Toffoli had surgery on his hand. He's going to be out for at least 8 weeks. Matthew Perreault was out for an extended period of time. Josh Anderson is out for an extended period of time. Brendan Gallagher entered the NHL's COVID-19 protocol. Sami Niku as well. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, there's some guys here that I'm forgetting. Mike Hoffman was out long-term with an injury as well. I think he missed about 9 or 10 games. The Canadiens, Jeff Petrie has been out for a couple of weeks now. The Canadiens are decimated. They're depleted, and they're not the team that they were a year ago. Add it all up, they are, statistically speaking, the second worst team in hockey. And I'm okay with this. So last night they lost, and a lot of people are upset that they did.
Tony, though, because you know what you're saying, you know, now we know what the plan is. I think what's beginning to worry me, and obviously if I'm not worrying about the Habs, I'm not alive, is I wonder if it is the plan or if they're just messing up so badly, you know, by themselves, like that this isn't necessarily Gorton's plan. And I think there's some really kind of disturbing things going on there. Like, are they tanking on purpose, or like, you know?
So what's the problem? What's disturbing in all of this? If you're not going to make the playoffs, you might as well be the worst team in the league.
I know, but if it was a plan, and you know, like, so what's the classic rebuild thing? If Gordon was doing a rebuild and he hasn't done anything yet, right? He's just sitting watching the games. Is so you would start unloading your veteran players. And if you look at, for example, what happened last night in St. Louis, which was, in a way, maybe the worst game of the year in some ways, but the bar is pretty high in terms of bad games. But remember what Dominic Ducharme said yesterday morning? He said, I need the veterans to stand up, because the veterans are embarrassing themselves. Did they stand up? They lay down. You know, Ben Sherratt, who's probably the primary guy to be traded, and like, what the hell is going on with this guy? Did you see him on that first goal? He's like, hang on while I scratch my nose while this guy shoots it into the net. It's ridiculous. Like,
Brendan, hold on a second. It's not ridiculous. Let me ask you this. Are the Canadiens going to make the playoffs? Yes or no?
It doesn't matter. Why does Ben Sherratt care about that?
I'll tell you why. Because they're all defeated. They're all demoralized. They didn't believe going into the season. I saw this one coming from a mile away. They didn't believe.
They don't believe it. You know what it is, and that's why I think there's disturbing elements there. Ben Sherratt's not trying to tank. He's going to be traded before the end of the year. You're right, he's demoralized, and he's given up, as have all of the veterans, have given up on Dominic Ducharme, and no one wants to talk about that. They don't want to talk about that because they want to defend Ducharme. I got nothing against Ducharme personally, but he has lost that room, and that's not tanking. That's something else.
Okay, so let's just say Ducharme has lost the room. And by the way, I don't think Sherratt was one of the Canadiens' worst players last night. I actually think he was better than a lot of them. But let's just say, Dominic Ducharme has lost the room. Okay, it's going to lead to more losses.
That idea.
It's going to lead to more losses. What's the problem? What's everyone complaining about? I don't understand what people are. We had a time to complain. Now is not the time to put pressure on the Montreal Canadiens to fire Dominic Ducharme when we know it's not going to happen. The coach is not coaching well this year. He doesn't give them a very good chance of winning games. Leave him there. This organization needs a good draft pick.
Look, we're on the same page in terms of the rebuild. I mean, I know you're fighting with many of your colleagues at the radio station over that, but we're on the same page. But I just think there's disturbing things happening because these guys are not trying to lose. They're losing all by themselves. And
I don't care how they lose, as long as they lose.
And, and will they get that number one? They're going to get a great look. They're so horrible, even if they go on a little mini search, which is not possible because the team is so crap. So they're going to get a good draft pick anyways. They're going to get a top 5 draft pick pretty well for sure. They might get number 1. They might get 2 or 3. The other thing that is an interesting question is, okay, so they're going to get probably a 1, 2, or 3, hopefully. Who's head of scouting for the Canadiens? We don't have that person. We don't have a GM. Gorton seems in no hurry to do
If they end up winning the lottery and they get the first pick overall, you could be the head of scouting for this year and you won't screw it up. The pick is Shane Wright. That's the pick. No Payne, no Shane.
If Trevor Timmins was still there, he'd probably go with some Finnish.
Trevor Timmins would have picked Shane Wright first overall. Come on, let's be honest here. 6'1" right-handed centerman. And by the way, I don't care that the Canadiens are losing. As a matter of fact, I'm happy they're losing. And guess what? I not only want them, and for those who say, well, you'd only get a 17% chance of getting the first pick overall if you finish dead last anyway, I want the best chance there is. And by the way, the lottery rules were changed back in 2020, I believe, and it's the first time since there's actually greater odds of getting the first pick overall if you finish last than finishing second last. I not only want the Canadiens to finish last in the league this year so they can draft Shane Wright out of the Kingston Frontenacs of the OHL, 6'1" right-handed centerman. I want them to finish last the year after that so they could end up drafting Connor Bedard, who's also a centerman who shoots right, who plays for the Regina Pats, who, by the way, most experts seem to think that he's actually better than Shane Wright as well and could be the closest thing that we've ever seen to Connor McDavid. So, that's good enough for me.
But we don't even, I'm not even disagreeing with you. I believe, so we're on the same page. We have to do a rebuild. We do not know at all if that's Jeff Gorton's plan. We don't. He said it himself. He said, I don't have a plan. I haven't made first thing is to pick the GM and then the head of scouting. So he doesn't have, at least he hasn't shared the plan with us. So we don't know if he's doing a rebuild. We don't. Maybe he'll go into the same idiotic stuff that Bergevin was doing, which is try to win every year with a bad team. We just don't know. And another question for you, Tony, this morning. Someone sent that to me on Twitter, and I thought it was a great question. Did Jeff talk to anyone else except for Jeff Gordon? Did he look around?
Who cares, man? Brendan, you're going to drive me crazy today. What's the problem with Jeff Gordon? You're starting to sound like your friends on the other side now. Please stop. He's the best candidate for the job. He was part of a rebuild with the Rangers. He was an assistant general manager with the Boston Bruins for the longest time. He was part of a fantastic draft over there. He's the best guy available for the job. Who cares who he interviewed, man?
Il y a une chose, Tony. Il faut qu'il parle français.
But who cares? But who cares?
I care. But don't
First of all, the VP of Hockey Ops does not have to speak French, okay? They want the GM to speak French, that's fine. They want the coach to speak French, that's fine. Whatever it is, he doesn't have to speak French.
He has to speak French.
And he showed up. He had a press conference. He delivered a few words in French. Let's give him a break, okay? Let's give him a break.
But don't you think, I like people said, why are you so, I'm not being hard on him. What I said in my column this week is, why would he not learn French? What's the big deal?
So you know what? If you're going to go with that, okay? If you're going to go with that, the guy just got here, okay? Right. Cut him some slack. If you're going to go with that, ask Carey Price why he doesn't speak French. He's been here for 15 years, okay?
That's an outrage.
Okay, perfect. Ask Brendan Gallagher why he doesn't speak French. Ask the other guys. Ask Jeff. Ask the other guys. Leave Gordon alone.
Okay. Fair
okay,
enough.
perfect.
Why doesn't Carey Price speak French?
That's his problem. It's not mine. Okay, Hab Nation says, I have a question. Why don't you want St. Patrick running the team? Can't be worse since he left. I'm going to answer that. I'll give you the chance to answer that because I don't think it won't be better either. I think it's going to be a real circus. I think he's going to want to control everything. I think he's going to want to be the GM, the assistant GM, the vice president, the assistant vice president, yada, yada, the coach, the assistant coach, the goalie coach, the player coach, the goalie, the player, the organist, the equipment manager is going to want to be everything. Carey Price cannot work well within a team, number one. Number two, it's going to become a power struggle. Everyone knows it. Everyone sees it coming from a mile away. The French media actually want it to happen because they don't like the fact that Gorton's in charge. So they want it to become a power struggle because then it's going to become public or they're going to write about it on the record or off the record. They're going to talk about it and write about it. And then public favor is going to go towards St. Patrick because he's a saint and a king and Le Roi and this and that. And then they're going to try and get Gordon out of there. I don't want to. If Patrick Roy was great, okay, he hasn't been in the league in I don't know how long. If he's six years ago, if he would have been great, somebody other would have scooped him up. Make somebody else hire him. Make the Nordiques hire him. Away. Go.
I wouldn't say I really liked Jeff Gorton's response on the Patrick Roy thing. He said he had a good joke about, oh yeah, I've heard of him. And he said, listen, I can work with strong person. I'm not saying he should absolutely be the GM, but I do think, when people say, oh, he can't work, wasn't able to work with Joe Sakic as his boss. On the other hand, he did say, I'm interested in the GM job, knowing that Jeff Gorton was the executive vice president of hockey operations. So he's showing a certain openness to working with him. You know what I would say, Tony?
Patrick Roy will take any job the Montreal Canadiens will give him. It's almost begging. I think it's petty, to tell you the truth. He even has a campaign manager. He has members of the media asking about him and continuing writing articles and talking to every single person. Listen.
He's a larger-than-life figure.
Have you seen what members of the media are doing? They're getting every single person to endorse Patrick Roy's candidacy, to go on record to talk about him, but every single person who does it, they don't talk to those people. Come on, man. You don't want to know why? Because he's an idol to some of these. They grew up watching him. They love the guy. They think he's larger than life here in Quebec. Give me a break. Come on.
Well, I get why people care so much about Patrick Roy. I mean, he was the last guy to bring the cup to Montreal. And I mean, he was and you know what, he's not the ideal candidate, obviously. But what I like about St. Patrick, is he brings that fiery passion that has not been there in the management rank, the Montreal Canadiens for 30 or 40 years. That would be nice to see, And
you know what? They said le CH tatoué sur le cœur and the fiery passion, and they said it for Réjean Houle and Mario Tremblay and Yvan Cournoyer and Steve Shutt. Hold on a second. I'm not comparing them, but just hear me out for a second. Bob Gainey and Rick Green and Guy Carbonneau and Kirk Muller and all these guys that used to work for the organization. I'd rather they put it in hands of people who never worked for the organization, who, by the way, want to win as badly as the alumni did, okay? If you're working in hockey, you want to win the Stanley Cup. There's not one person who wants to win it more than somebody else. They all want to win it. This, that, and all that stuff. Now, Patrick Roy, this is what we know. When I say Montreal Canadiens, besides all of that stuff, the winning, the tradition, all that stuff, the fire, what were the Montreal Canadiens in the past, right? They were class, correct? They were class?
They were a long time ago. A long time ago.
Okay. And we want to get back to that, right?
Yes, that'd be nice. Okay,
so we're going to hire the guy who, once a new coach came in 1995, said, okay, guys, I'm the boss, my way or the highway. He looked at his teammates in the locker room and said, we're going to see about that, who's the boss. Who basically turned over, looked at the president and said, my last game in Montreal.
Good on him.
Who asked for a divorce from the team. The first time they played each other after, he took the puck and he shot it at the coach's feet as he was walking off the ice. He got arrested because of a call that was made to 911 in which there was a suspicion of domestic abuse. He then quit on his former teammate and his former team. He quit on them, okay? This is who we want the Montreal Canadiens to hire?
I don't really want Patrick Waugh to be GM. Look, we're talking about this, Tony, and
All
we're
right.
really talking about the Francophone media. You know Jeff Molson. I know Jeff Molson. I can tell. I've been saying this for years. Jeff Molson, and I mean, I would bet you any amount of money, Jeff Molson will never ever hire Patrick Waugh. The personality mix between those people just ain't ever going to happen.
And I wouldn't either. All right. I want to do this. Let's try and get to as many questions as possible because sharing is caring. Share this video and comment on your Habs questions. We haven't even talked about the Canadiens losing 4-1 to St. Louis yesterday. I don't really think it matters. It was a no-show. Romanov's got the only goal of the game. Jake Allen wanted to win against his former team. It's too bad he didn't. He was able to make 35 saves. Charlie Lindgren won versus his former team. Cool for him.
Can we just take a moment to underline what a hero Jake Allen is? I mean, this guy has gone to war for the Montreal Canadiens for the last 2 years.
Well, hero's a big word. Hero. Terry Fox is Terry Fox was a hero. Jake Allen's a hockey player.
Well, okay, a hero by NHL standards. I mean, he was the only reason the team made the playoffs last year. Every night he goes out there. And you know what? You're saying, who cares? The veterans don't care. I care. They're showing a total lack of respect for the team and for the fans. And the only veteran who comes out every night and gives it his all is Jake Allen. I want to finish last as well as you do, but I totally respect this guy. And I loved that moment last night when he was with the St. Louis Blues organization since he was a teenager, and they gave him a really heartfelt tribute. That was the only nice moment of a horrible game, one of the worst games the Habs have played.
All right. I love Jake Allen too, but he's not a hero. Mike Garon. Good morning, guys. Do you think the Canadiens will get true value from a trade from other teams if the league knows that the Habs are trying to unload huge contracts? All right.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because you know what? There's some players there with some value, not much value. I mean, Mark Bergevin has left a total shambles of a team as he exits the building. And one of the things is that there's no team with more long-term contracts than the Montreal Canadiens, and they are terrible contracts. Take like Brendan Gallagher. So the guy is, he's on the decline, obviously. He's not nearly the player he used to be, but he's still a player who could be a useful role player for a team that thinks they're going to go deep in the playoffs. But he's in the first of a 6-year deal.
I know. Listen, here's the deal. These are the contracts I would unload in order. Carey Price would be number 1. Jeff Petrie would be number 2. Brendan Gallagher would be number 3. Who's going to take it? Very, very easy. A, you're going to have to eat some salary on one contract or more. B, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to eat a lot of salary in return, but you just take back less term. There will be teams interested. Now, is the timing right? Unfortunately not. Because like a stock, their value is not at a high right now. So they might have to wait it out. It might happen in the next 2 months. It might happen before the deadline. It might happen next year.
Who's going to take Carey Price? He hasn't even come back from his substance abuse thing. I mean, he's not actually playing NHL hockey. Will he play again? Maybe. Will he be any good? Maybe. Has he got a terrible contract? Yes. Has he been good in recent years? No.
You have to find someone to take him, and that's why you have to put your trust in Jeff Gordon's hands and donner la chance au coureur, as they say. More questions coming in. Sharing is caring. Share the video, comment on your Habs. Dan Desjardins, with front office cleared and veterans possibly going, what do you think next season will bring? I want to think they're in for a rough new year. Thanks, Tony. Have a good day. Next season, I think, is going to bring another year of losing. I think Jeff Gordon was brought here for a reason. At least I hope he was. They are going to ice as weak a team as possible. But what I think this year and next year, but what I think is going to happen over the next couple of years is they're going to try and weed out some of the players who aren't the hardest workers, or they're going to try and weed them out. They're going to bring in a little bit of a harder working team. Slowly but surely, they'll try and change the culture to get it to become a hardworking team. So, but for the next year and a half, I think it's going to be not status quo. They're going to make changes, but they're going to ice a weak team and hope to finish as low as possible. That's what I think they're going to do. Brendan?
That's what you think they're going to do, but I come back to the same point. We don't know if that's Gordon's plan.
Well, that's what they should do, Brendan.
And better word. And the other thing, Tony, is that, so, okay, when you're doing a rebuild, what you do is of course, you get rid of the veterans with bad contracts or on the decline, but you also build around young players. They've got virtually no one. It's going to be rough. So who are you building around? I would suggest you have for sure one player, Nick Suzuki, and potentially two other players in Romanov and Caulfield, and that is it. That's rough.
Okay.
You don't have a goalie?
Should they have the first pick overall either this year or next year?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's the ideal. I get it. That's the pinnacle, right? Having first this year, that's the pinnacle. Okay. If you get one of those guys, that's the guy you're going to end up building around.
Well, and
because they don't have a player in this organization like Shane Wright, and they don't have a player in this organization like Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard, they're saying, could be the closest thing we've ever seen to Connor McDavid.
But we don't have these players yet, and we don't know if we'll get them.
Well, we're going to try.
Absolutely. But all I'm saying, I'm not being a negative Nelly. I'm just saying, and I'm sure you would agree, this is good. And I think Gordon's the right guy for the job. And since that decision was made, as a guy who's been super critical of Jeff Molson, I'm saying Jeff Molson made the right move. I like Jeff Gordon. I have no problem with the fact that he's an American and he's unilingual. I think he should learn French, no big deal. But he's the right man for the job. But it's going to be a tough job because Bergevin left us in a shambles of a team.
Well, you know what? I don't know if he did this on purpose or not, but
looks like
when you extend players for a long period of time, the owner of the team probably looks at you and says, this is his team. They're extended for a long period of time. I might as well just leave it to him and extend him for a long period of time too. I don't know if that was his goal anyway. Long story short, it didn't work out. We wish him all the best. Michael Foresta, does keeping Ducharme for the full year have a negative effect on the development of the young players? I say no. Take those young players, send them to Laval.
Well, but he's not doing that. And what's, the thing that's bothering me about Ducharme, I'm not saying fire him. Gordon said he's keeping him anyway, so we're stuck with him. But the reality is we were sold a bill of goods on Dominic Ducharme, particularly from the French press, who were really pumping this guy's tires and saying he's this and that, new generation of coach. He's. And
by the way, none of that press is talking about how bad a coach he is, eh?
Exactly.
None of them. They choose their battles. It was Trevor Timmins' fault. Right. Who was hired by Andre Savard, so they didn't give the fault to Savard. It was Timmins. Then he was kept on board by Bergevin, still Timmins' fault. Then Bergevin gave him a promotion, still Timmins' fault. Bergevin gave him a raise to give him the promotion, still Timmins' fault. In the end, it's Timmins' fault, and then they say, Bergevin was just loyal.
How come?
The coach, they got one of their own who's coaching. He's got 21 wins and like 46 losses. His regular season record or whatever it is, I don't know what it is. No, not a word of what, nothing. No, the power play, it's the worst power play I've ever seen.
And in fact, if you listen to, the two of the top shows on French TV about the Habs, which is L'Antichambre and Jean-Charles Lajoie's show, both those places I've heard incessant arguments saying the worst thing they could do is blame Ducharme for what's going on because it's not his fault because they doesn't have the players. And that's true, he doesn't have the players. But he has lost the room. He has lost the room, and he's shown what I always say, and I've said this to you many times with sports, it's like Caulfield. He's not a good NHL player yet. Dominic Ducharme is not a good NHL coach.
Listen, I would say watching Antichambre, and I saw Mario Tremblay, Benoit Brunet in particular, a lot of them have been talking about as of late, though, the fact that Dominic Ducharme does not hold players accountable. All right. So I think a lot of people are seeing that. Now, having said that, okay, let's move on. Let's move on and let's take more questions. I know this. I know what the French daily newspapers write about. They don't write about Ducharme as head coach. They don't write about Burroughs as assistant coach and in charge of the power play. They're upset with Jeff Molson. They're upset with Jeff Gordon, and they were upset with Trevor Timmins before that. If Dominic Ducharme would have been Randy Cunneyworth, they would have obliterated him by now. And if Alex Burrows would have been Kirk Muller, they would have crucified him by now. And by the way, Muller's got a pretty good power play in Calgary.
But also, let's just be fair: is that there's a certain complacency in the entire much of the media coverage of the Habs. So it's not just the French press.
I know I'm doing my job. Ryan Katz, if the Canadiens had a veteran coach behind the bench for the first 29 games, would the results have been the same? Listen, you need the horses for sure. And the Canadiens don't have them, and they're decimated and they're depleted. But take a look at this team the players in their defensive zone coverage, they look lost. They don't know if they're playing zone. They don't know if they're playing man-to-man. They don't know who to pick up. They don't have a transition game. They don't have an offensive zone strategy. So to answer your question, I'm not saying they wouldn't make the playoffs, but you're not going to tell me that if the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens was Jacques Lemaire, you're not going to tell me that if the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens was Rod Brindamore, John Cooper, Barry Trotz, you name it, that the Canadiens wouldn't be better, because I know they would be. Brandon?
Yeah, but I would just say a couple of things. One is that please don't mention Jacques Lemaire. I mean, you just like to go back to even the thought of going back to that horrible kind of, he
was a great coach. He won a Stanley Cup, Brendan. Come on.
I don't want to win a Stanley Cup like that. Honestly, you want to play that kind of hockey?
You know what?
I want to have some fun, but also the other
I
thing.
want a Stanley Cup any way they could take it.
But let's not entirely blame Dominic Ducharme. Let's blame Jeff Petrie. Let's say, you know what? Come on, man. What is it with these players? I mean, those veteran players have stunk out the house, and they should be held accountable as well. And you say Ducharme doesn't.
Hey, I'm not saying it's all on Ducharme. I'm just saying that if his name was Randy Cunningham, they would have destroyed him by now. And you know that.
I know that.
Listen, the stats say that this is statistically the worst Montreal Canadiens team in history.
And it's not just his fault.
Dominic, but yeah, it's not just his fault. No, but when you watch the press conferences, okay, you're a student of the media game. When you watch the press conferences and you see the way he handles it, does he come across as a guy who has the answers to you?
He comes across as a guy who's not comfortable in his own skin.
Mario Giovannitti, how about Guy Boucher as coach? I think the next coach, by the way, I think Ducharme is going to be your coach, obviously, for this year, the way they confirmed them. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's your coach next year. Listen to me carefully, okay? I know a lot of people think I'm crazy, and maybe I am. If the Canadiens have a less chance of winning games with Dominic Ducharme as coach, keep him there next year as well. Why would I want to get a coach if you don't have a team? If you don't have a team that not only can't win the Stanley Cup, but can't even make the playoffs, why would you want to get a better coach in right away? To develop young players? Those players are developed in the American Hockey League.
Your most important thing right now is developing those young players. That's
in Laval.
You're gonna, you know what? No matter what you do, because of this crap team that was built by Marc Bergevin, you're going to lose a lot of games anyways. So make sure you develop those players properly, because if you don't, then there's no point in rebuilding.
Wasn't a crap team he built. It was a flawed team, and everything just. Listen, what starts bad ends bad.
Flawed team out there. It's going to turn out to be the worst season in the history of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes, you're right. But if Carey Price would have been there to start the season, and Joel Edmondson would have been there to start the season, and
did you just say that? How did Carey Price do last year? Did he have a good year? Regular season.
I think he's better than Samuel Montembeault. No, was he too?
Is he better than Jake Allen?
In the regular season, they're probably the same.
Right. So
in the playoffs, Jake Allen couldn't have done what Carey Price did last year in the playoffs.
Carey Price did something incredible in the playoffs. But
all right. Glenn Delaney. Hey, Tony, do you think the Habs would shut down Carey Price for the year and put him on LTIR? Brendan, why don't you take care of this one?
I'd be surprised. I mean, all indications are they're going to try to get him back in there. He's making progress on the ice. I mean, it's kind of, if I was Carey Price, the first thing I'd be doing is going to Mr. Gorton's office and saying, I'm waiving the no trade clause. Here's the 5, 6, 7, 8 teams that I'm willing to be traded to.
He doesn't have to tell him that. He's already been told that Carey Price wanted out. Yeah. He knows. Right. Anybody who's anybody in hockey knows that Carey Price wanted to go to Seattle. What is this, hockey for dummies now? Anybody who's anybody knows that Carey Price wanted to go to Seattle. Jeff Gorton knows. The whole organization knows. They know. Come on.
But that goes back to what we were talking about before. Carey Price. They could have had him for free. Seattle could have had Carey for free, and Ron Francis is like, no thanks.
Well, that's it. So you're going to have to pay half the salary, and you're going to have to do a good selling job. Alexis Dubuc. Tony, are you doing this trade Sherratt for Kravtsov? Kravtsov, who was a former first-round pick of the New York Rangers, a talented player who's playing in the KHL. I'm giving teams a deadline to acquire Ben Sherratt. Personally, I'm not going to wait until the trade deadline. Because if he ends up getting hurt and then you can't get nothing from him, let's just say his season is over, I'm trading Ben Sherrod as soon as I can. So what I'm doing, I'm letting everyone know that you have 1 week to get in your best offer or whatever it is. I would give a deadline, but I'm doing it sooner rather than later.
You won't get much for him. You think you can get a number 1 pick?
Of course.
Not number 1, a first round draft pick?
Of course you're going to get a first round draft pick.
All right, we'll see.
He's among the top 3 on any trade bait list board that there is right now. Of course you're going to get it. Of course. Brendan, stop, Brendan. Okay, let's take more. Yeah, I'm going to lose my mind today. Colin says, are we going to have a captain next year? Brendan?
No.
Next year, they're not going to have a captain?
Who would be? I mean, they're going to have to trade for one. Who could possibly be the captain?
They'll have a captain next year.
We're talking about all those veterans. I mean, unless you get, and I wouldn't make Suzuki the captain. I don't know. I mean, it's I don't see a captain there. I mean, I think it's ridiculous not to have a captain. But who would you make captain?
Well, there are years where they had a captain here and he wasn't great. So, listen, I think they're going to have a captain.
Let's bring back Max.
That's not going to happen. No. Sharing is caring. Share the video, comment on your Habs questions. I have no idea who's sending this one, but I'll say it anyway. I have a simple yet melancholic and
existential, Tony.
Yes, I understand, but you could read this one. I'm born and raised in LaSalle, and we're talking about melancholic and existential here.
This is more for someone like me who's seen a few Lars von Trier films.
Yeah, no. This is someone who wants to act. Hold on a second. My can went flying. Look at that. This is someone who wants to act smart, because all you could do is just say, could anything have been different since our last cup win? Or in other words, isn't this failure a fatality at this point?
That's a great question, don't you? I think forget the big words that sent you into a tizzy there and got you a little upset. I think it's a great question, because you do look at, I'm fascinated by that cup run last year, because I'm like, what I say to my friends now, all I'm admitting, Tony, the only thing I will concede on that cup run is that it actually happened. But other than that, it's beyond a fluke. It's beyond an outlier.
Hold on a second.
No, it really is.
No, it's not. And I'm going to tell you why. It is, but it isn't.
Let me finish my thought. It's just that the first, Jeff Molson went through when he was talking about why he fired Bergevin, he said they had a terrible regular season. They had a terrible first 4 games against Toronto. Even the first game against Toronto that they won, they barely won that. Paul Byron had to do those, but they won it. Then they were absolutely horrifyingly bad. And then they were good for exactly 2.5 series. And I'm not saying it didn't happen. I know it happened. I had a great time like everyone else in Montreal. And then they were mediocre again against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Carey went back to being just ordinary. And so for 2.5 series, something happened, and I think the group came together. Yes. But in other words, what I'm getting to is the answer to the listener's question is this year was inevitable. I mean, it was going to happen, but it was compounded by a bunch of idiotic moves over the summer by management of the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay, so now hold on a second. Every now and then you need to be fair, okay? So if you're going to say that this summer was compounded by idiotic moves, and by the way, I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah, you also have to say that this, hold on a second. You also have to say that the summer before, the work that was done was absolutely fantastic. Every team that goes to the final or wins a championship needs an element of luck, yes. But for you to come on here and say it was just fluke, only fluke and nothing but fluke is not true. Because the year before, Marc Bergevin traded for and signed Joel Edmondson. Traded for and signed Jake Allen. Signed via free agency, Tyler Toffoli.
Correct.
Got Perry, got Stahl, added some depth with Merrill, yada, yada, yada. Well, he put together, hold on a second.
Did you mention John Merrill?
He played in the final, no?
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, you know what? Forget about Merrill. Okay, you don't want to add Merrill? Forget about him. Jake Allen, Joel Edmondson, Corey Perry, Eric Stahl, and Tyler Toffoli. Those are 5 off the top of my head, and there were probably others, but I don't remember what I ate 2 days ago. So Those five
It's probably
contributed. Those five contributed to the Canadiens going far. Marc Bergevin put together a team that had one good run in them. They gave what they gave. Yes, they could have been eliminated by Toronto, but they weren't. To say it was just fluke is not fair. Unfair.
I would qualify that, and I did say that the group came together in an extraordinary way. But, it's what were
who put the group together? He put it together. So if you're going to say that he had a terrible offseason this offseason, which he did, he did, because I saw this one. Look, I didn't expect the Canadiens to be the second worst team in hockey, but I expected them to be really bad this season. Really bad.
Let me put it another way for you, Tony. Going to the Cup final, in terms of of the team moving forward, I loved it. I had a great time, like all of us did. It made such a great inspirational moment after COVID, but it was the worst thing that can happen to the Canadiens.
Then again, it may have been the best thing that could happen to the Canadiens. You want to know why?
Well, I disagree. I think
because the fact that they had such a short summer is one of the reasons why they're so bad this year. And the fact that they're going to be so bad this year is going to make them better for years to come. You'll see. Let them draft Shane Wright. Let them win the lottery. And by the way, Gordon was part of a couple of lotteries. He won one with the Rangers.
Yeah, he got lucky.
And he got second in the other. So you know what? Sometimes better to be lucky than good. Eric Diorio, which player would you send to the All-Star game this year?
Nick Suzuki. Short list of players. Pizzata. He's my favorite player on the team.
Listen, I would say it's either Suzuki or Jake Allen.
Yeah, we're not going to get to send a goalie, presumably, right?
Well, so anyway, there we go. Others. But hold on a second.
Hey, there's some good questions.
Is there an All-Star? I don't even. If there's the Olympics this year, there's no All-Star game, is there?
Oh, good question. Get our research team on it.
Get our research team to give us the answer. I don't even know. By the way, I don't really care about the All-Star weekend.
Neither do I.
Martin Carrier. Brendan, did you call Jeff Molson yet?
I'm on the line with Jeff every day.
No, you're not. No, you're not. It's not true. Last time we spoke, you told me that you were thinking of reaching out to him. I encouraged you to do so. You didn't. And now Brendan wants an update.
But you know what happened?
Well, not Brendan, but you're Brendan.
But look what happened is I didn't call Jeff Molson, and he did exactly what I've been writing about for 2 or 3 years. I said hire a president of hockey operations and then hire a GM under him, make the president Anglophone and the GM Francophone, and it's exactly what he's done, and it's the right thing to do. I'm not saying he did it just.
Yeah, well, he didn't listen to you because he didn't hire a president. He hired an executive vice president.
Big difference.
Yeah, the president of Le Club de Hockey Canadien is Jeff Molson. Joe Pelletier, is Shane Wright a generational talent? Generational talent is a big word, okay? Because when I think generational talent, I think Connor McDavid. I think Sidney Crosby. The fact that the OHL last year did not have a season hurt his development because a couple of years ago, he had 66 points in 58 games. Last year, he was off. And this year, he's got 30 points in 22 games. Connor Bedard, who looks to be the first pick in 2023, is considered more of a generational talent than Shane Wright. But you know what? Shane Wright, 6'1", 190 pounds, shoots right, centerman. I'll take him, and away par là. Other questions coming in.
Let's just not blow the pick. That's all.
I'll go choose the pick. Tony, would you keep? Who would you keep from the squad, and who would you deal? What would I do? Okay, so I told you that in order, I would trade Carey Price, Jeff Petrie, and Brendan Gallagher. Those would be the first ones that I would trade. The first ones. Those are very important players on the team and good players. You know what's going to happen? You're going to end up icing an inferior team. You're going to end up tanking even more. Then next year at the deadline, not this year at the deadline, but next year at the deadline, then I'll trade, and by the way, I'll trade Ben Sherratt this year as well because his contract is up. I'll trade Mathieu Perreault because his contract is up. I'll see if I can get something for Paquette. Whatever I can get, I'll take.
You won't get anything.
And then next year, the year after, around the deadline, because I'm going to keep Jonathan Drouin as much as I can because I think he gives you a better chance to lose games. That's right. I just said that. I will trade him at the deadline because his contract will be up. I'm not going to renew him, and I'll trade him at the deadline.
No one will take him.
At the deadline, no one will take him?
No.
Next year, not the 2022 deadline, the 2023 deadline.
I mean, he has a transformation between then and now. He's got a terrible contract, and he's played. I mean,
but his contract won't matter, Brendan. He's $5.5 million. There'll be 2 months left in the season. It'll be prorated. They'll be on the hook for like $1 million or $1.5 million or whatever it is.
Maybe if you're lucky.
Yeah. All right. Okay. More questions. AG, would you sign short-term deals for veterans like Bergeron, Letang, Fleury to mentor the youth?
That's actually hilarious. You'd hire Fleury to win the Stanley Cup.
I'm not signing them to mentor the youth. You want to know why? Because those guys give you a better chance of winning hockey games. I don't want to win hockey games. Not this year and not next year.
No, we're not hired.
What are we doing here? Instead of doing a rebuild, we're going to do a 1-year patch. Okay, one bad year. Okay, let's go for it again. Doesn't work.
Let's see what, I mean, again, you seem convinced that Gorton and Molson are on the same page as you. I'm not so convinced. I hope they are, but let's see.
It's the logical page to be on.
It is the logical place to be.
They're not going to win with this core.
I haven't seen any logic from Habs management in 40 years.
Listen, this core is getting old. And these long-term contracts, I'm sorry, I don't like it. But you want to know why? Because if the season starts bad, you give up on long-term contracts. So I'll go with a rebuild, a full one, and I'd like to do it for 3 years, but I'm willing to start with 2, and we'll go from there. And by the way, for all of you who say winning a rebuild doesn't necessarily win a Stanley Cup, look at Edmonton. Yeah, I really feel sorry for Edmonton Oilers fans. For the last 7 years, they've had to watch Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. One is the fastest, most dynamic talent to ever play the game, and the other one has been a top 5 player in the National Hockey League for the last 4 seasons. I do know this. Pittsburgh doesn't win the Stanley Cup without Crosby, without Malkin, without Fleury, and without Stahl. Chicago doesn't win the Cup without Kane and Taves. Washington doesn't win the Cup without Ovechkin and Backstrom. So give me my rebuild. You'll either win the Cup or you're going to watch exciting hockey players for quite some time. More questions. Let's go. I'm in the mood today.
Pick the right guys.
Ralph Trotzo, this one's for you, okay? Brendan, do you think by next season the coach will be gone?
Yes. I mean, that's the sense that I get. I mean, like I say, there is absolutely no sense that Ducharme is ready to be a quality NHL coach. But then you're going to get into the problem, which is the same problem. I understand, and of all the positions where it needs to be French speaking, I'm 100% agreed that the coach needs to speak French because he does that press conference twice a day. So who are you going to hire? Who is there who's been an NHL coach who speaks French who hasn't already coached that? So you've got Guy Boucher, you got Bob Hartley, you got Mark Crawford. I think that's about it. So that's pretty bad. Like if you wanted to you're stuck again, like the same thing with the hiring the GM, but at least they got around it with that, setting up the structure differently. But you're going to have to get a rookie coach again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And there's Andre Tourigny is in Arizona, and we'll see what happens there. And then they have Benoit Groux with the Crunch and Pascal Vincent with the Manitoba Moose. And look, there's a lot of candidates, but listen, at the end of the day, once again, if Ducharme's not doing a good job, keep him in place, lose more hockey games, and that's it. It's better like that. Once again, I don't understand what we're doing here. You don't just have a terrible season, then try and patch it back up and let's go again. You do that if you have fantastic players, game changers, number one centerman, number one defenseman.
What about Joël Bouchard? Bring him back.
I don't see him coming back here.
No, I don't see him come back either because he was kind of treated badly by the organization. So, when you get passed over for the job, that's when you quit, right? I mean, you take another job.
Simon Tessier. Some people think that they should sign Sherratt instead of trading him. If that's the case, how much should they pay? Is there a risk of overpaying for what you have? Okay. Simon, merci beaucoup pour la question. C'est très apprécié. Some people that think that they should sign Sherratt are wrong.
Correct.
The Canadiens are not a Stanley Cup contender. They don't have to sign 30, soon to be 31-year-old Ben Sherratt for the next 3 years, and he's going to be 34. And then all of a sudden, if Petrie's looking this way at 34, imagine Sherratt. And they already have, no. You're going to rebuild. Trade him, for a young talent. Try and get a first-round pick
You'll be
and the prospect.
You won't get that much, but I mean, try.
I think you can.
Try.
I think you can.
Give it the college try. But no, obviously you're not re-signing veteran players. I can't see that under any scenario.
No. All right. Okay. Other questions. Mike Garon. What do you think will happen to Luke Richardson's future with the Habs? There's talk that he is head coaching material. Your thoughts, Brendan?
How's his parley-vous? He doesn't speak French, so he's not going to be the head coach. I mean, it's as simple as that. Unless they're suggesting a head coach elsewhere, but he's not going to be head coach here. It's not really clear if he's if he's done a good job or he hasn't here. I mean, the team is so abysmal and was last year as well. I mean, I think we keep forgetting that because of the Stanley Cup run. So there's no reason to make him head coach, and he doesn't speak French, so he's not going to be head coach.
Personally, I don't think Luke Richardson is going to be a head coach in the National Hockey League. Not to say that he doesn't have the ability or the competencies. It's just a gut feel. I don't think he's going to be a head coach in the National Hockey League. That's it. That's just what I think. And once again, I would keep the staff even next year. Lose, baby. Lose. Connor Bedard next year. Do you know him? Plays for the Regina Pats. Did you watch the highlights of Team Canada World Juniors yesterday? Playing a pre-tournament game? 16 years old. He's got a elite status. They're saying that he's the closest thing to Connor McDavid. The game finished 3-0 for Canada. He scored 2 goals and 1 assist. He was the youngest player on the ice. He's a phenom. And over here, we have a fan base that's rushing to be better. No. Be terrible this year. Keep on being terrible this year. And be even worse next year. Let's get Tortorella.
Forget it.
And that's crap in sports. We can never have the best guys under those rules that they have to speak French. All right. I don't want John Tortorella. I think he's a dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. Forget Torts. I mean, it's...
he doesn't like what Trevor Zegras did. You know what? It's not good for hockey. It's great for hockey. It's great for hockey.
Let's have fun. Let's have some fun for a change. We haven't done that in 40 years in Montreal.
My kids aren't even crazy about hockey. They came running down the stairs. Did you just see what Trevor Zegras did?
Yeah, exactly.
All over social media. All the kids are going nuts. John Tortorella, no, it's not good. No. Got to play the right way. Stop.
My son and all his friends got turned off hockey because it was so boring. We've been doing dump and chase for 40 years.
By the way, he's welcome to come on the Sick Podcast whenever he wants. MJV, Tony, do you think if Price is traded, Primo should take over as the number 1? Brendan?
No, he's not ready. So, and then that's another, and it's an incredible failure of the organization. We knew Carey Price was going. It's just a matter of when he's going. They might trade him this year. He might end his career this year. He might end it next year. He's on his way out. It's been clear for a while. How do you not develop a goalie to be there? There's no one.
They're doing a good job of developing Primo with Laval. He's getting better and better. The last month, he's played exceptional hockey. Keep him there and make him see a lot of games and a lot of pucks.
Yeah, but we have no sense if he's the guy. We don't know. Not saying he's still young, but we don't know.
He's the real deal.
Is he?
Marination says so. Sharing is caring. More questions coming in. I'm the president of the Caden Primo fan club, by the way. Curtis Alt is the new director of scouting now a more important position to fill rather than the GM?
No, because the most important position is already filled. Which
correct.
Is important. And then the second most important position is
who's the GM in the skies, by the way?
What's that? Well,
he's the GM in the skies.
He's the GM. Period.
Correct.
Why is everyone in the French media upset? Because they know he's the GM.
Of course they do.
This ridiculous thing. Who's going to have the final say? Who has the final say? The boss always has the final say. So the GM's more. And make no mistake, though, Tony.
And by the way, that's another reason why they're not going to hire Patrick Roy. For those who haven't figured it out, if they wanted to hire Patrick Roy, they would have hired him already. But if he wanted to be the GM, he still has a chance at coach, but I say no chance.
But the people who think that the GM that Jeff Gorton's going to hire is just a puppet are wrong. This is a key position. And if they get someone really good, and it's going to be someone who can speak French, obviously, it's going to be an important position.
It is going to be an important position. The person will not be a puppet.
Exactly.
But Jeff Gordon will have final say.
That's the hockey department will be these two guys. And then the scouting guy will be key too. You had the wrong guy in there for 20 years. Get the right guy for a change.
Hey, it's too bad we're not getting paid per question asked and per question answered today. This is unbelievable. I can't believe I woke up on a Sunday morning to do this for minimum wage. All these questions. Brent and Linda Duff.
What do you mean minimum wage? You promised, Tony, you promised big things.
Yeah, well, it'll come. Any GM candidates that nobody's talking about that you are thinking about that would do a good job? This coming in from Brent. Brendan, any GM candidate? Can I just spell another one? Why would Pat Brisson want to be the GM of the Montreal Canadiens and take an enormous pay cut? We're talking about the most prominent agent in all of hockey today, who's making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's not going to be Pat Brisson.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting it was interesting, and I don't have the names, but it's interesting when Gordon said, he didn't say I'm thinking outside the box, but he said, I'm thinking it could be someone different. It could be someone to really complement my skill set. It could be a player. So that was interesting. Not like he wasn't saying a GM.
Or a GM.
Or a GM, but it also...
I think in Gordon's ideal world, he would have liked for that GM to be Kent Hughes, but my gut tells me that he won't take it either. By the way, I could be wrong on this, but my gut tells me he won't take it either.
But
if he would be offered the job.
About that agent thing, Tony, and I was
thinking... We should go for our agents course.
But yeah. You know who was an agent who became one of the great GMs was Pierre Lacroix.
Yes.
Right. So it's that's actually a good fit. And what about Alan Walsh?
Alan Walsh to be the GM of the Montreal Canadiens? That would never happen.
Why not?
Because it would never happen.
So. Why not? He speaks French. He's from Montreal.
Yes, I'm just telling you it'll never happen.
I know you're telling me that. Okay. You have to explain why you're saying that. Like you marinated it in your head, and you don't like Alan?
Take a look at no, I don't have a problem with Alan at all. I've known Alan for a very long time. I think it's actually I've never seen somebody fight for their clients, for the players as much as Alan. I know that kind of rubs some people the wrong way. I kind of think it's honorable at the same time and very loyal of him. But take a look at Alan on social media. You think Jeff Molson is going to hire him?
I mean, part of the problem is Jeff Molson is an incredibly conservative manager, so he probably won't. Too bad. I mean, I think it's an interesting choice. Honestly, I think they're going to...
Not a manager, the owner.
He's also a manager. He's the CEO and president of the Group CH.
Manages people. Yeah, I get you.
Manages people, and he's a very conservative manager. So a very conservative owner. So it won't be Alan Walsh.
You know what? Maybe Danny Briere is an assistant GM with a less prominent agent to be an assistant under Danny Briere. Ticket to the Moon Band says, "Hey guys, what do you think about Weber as coach or assistant coach for next year?" Brendan?
I mean, I have no indication that he would be a good coach. I mean, I don't know. I mean, why would you hire Weber as it's like, how did Wayne Gretzky work out as a coach? I mean, I'm not saying he'd be a bad coach, but let him go to the East Coast Hockey League for a few years and let's talk. I mean, why would you just bring him up to just because he did great stuff for the Habs? It was, I mean, obviously I'm on record. It was the wrong trade to make at the wrong time, but why would we think he'd be a good coach? Like No, I mean,
Shea Weber might one day be a good coach if he wants to. I just get the feeling that he wants to stay retired and enjoy life. And we haven't seen him all that much this year, have we? I think we saw him on 2 occasions.
He's not going to announce his retirement until he absolutely has to, for obvious reasons.
Yes, for obvious reasons. More questions coming in. Would you bring back Alain Vigneault as coach is coming from Gavino DiFalco? No, absolutely not.
No, forget it.
The game has gone in another direction. It's a more modern game. Alain is more of an old-fashioned coach, and I think we need some forward thinking and not backward thinking here. I say no.
Look to the future. It's like this Bob Gainey thing. Why is Bob Gainey on? I got nothing against Bob Gainey, but why is he got his hand on picking the GM? I mean,
you want to know why? Because if one day you don't end up liking the choice of the GM, you can't just say it's Jeff or Jeff. So now it's Jeff, Michael, and Bob.
Well, that's sad and pathetic.
And listen, look, I would have been okay if Jeff Molson would have said to Jeff Gordon, Jeff, you interview everybody. You come back and talk to me about who you think of hiring. If I give you the blessing, then we're good to go. I would have been okay with that. To have Gainey as part of overseeing everything to give his input, and then Jeff Gordon ultimately will decide, I'm kind of okay with that too. Either way, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. All right. Maybe get to one or two more questions, and that'll mean that we went for 1 hour. Wow.
Unreal.
Luc Perrin, Suzuki's contract is a joke, way too much money.
Absolutely, absolutely right. I mean, I love Nick Suzuki. I think this guy's the real deal. Probably a very good number 2 center. He's going to be great. A ridiculous deal, just one of, just the latest ridiculous deal signed by Marc Bergevin, who's very good at trading, very bad at signing contracts. He signed that deal for one reason and one reason only, because he mucked up the Jesperi Kotkaniemi thing so badly. And he was afraid that if what you normally would have done with Suzuki is sign him to one of those bridge deals where you sign him for a couple of years and see how he turns out, because he's still not a bona fide star player in the NHL. And he was worried that at that point, Suzuki would become a restricted free agent. And because he started this ridiculous, absurd macho war with the Carolina Hurricanes, that they would come and do the same thing that they did to Kotkaniemi. It's too much money and too much term for a guy who hasn't proven himself. I think he's going to be great.
It all depends if the cap goes up, but right now, if you had to say either way, you'd have to say right now that it might be a very generous contract. Sofiane Benzaza, why do we talk about the team's lack of competition? Aren't they at their maximum capacity under the circumstances? Brendan?
What does that mean? Why do we talk about this? I'm not sure. There's a few big words there.
He's basically saying they're so decimated, so depleted, and so weak on paper.
Oh, I see.
Isn't this who they really are? Everyone's talking about how bad they are. Isn't this who they are in the circumstances?
No, but I think I come back to look at that game last night. It was striking to me that how truly terrible the players who are in the lineup. So yes, you're missing these key players, but the guys who are there are playing at about 10% capacity. The veteran guys, the young guys are giving it their all, but they're AHL players, so they're not at that level. So I'm actually surprised, and I think it's partly coaching, but obviously these guys have given up on the coach. I do have to say as well, I mean, and there's
the fans have given up on the season, the players have to. We looked at this. Carey Price entered the assistance program. Joel Edmondson was going to start the season. Paul Byron was going to start the season. Shea Weber was unofficially retired. Eric Stahl was not brought back. Corey Perry signed with Tampa. Philip Deneau signed with Los Angeles. Thomas Tatar signed with New Jersey. We all looked at this and we said, this is not the team it was a year ago. And with all those guys out, this team's not going to make the playoffs. Everyone was demoralized. The players were too. It's transpired on the ice. So that's it. That's all.
And there's just no talent. I mean, there's so little talent. I was watching.
The talent is right here on the podcast.
The talent is here. The talent is here, obviously.
Too bad Marc Bergevin didn't negotiate our contracts on this podcast.
What's the deal with Armia finishing plays, by the way? I love that guy. He works so hard, but oh my God.
I think Armia might be finished in Montreal, period. Mind you, if they trade away some of their big guys over the next couple of years, he could possibly find himself as, one of the better lines, and you got to keep somebody at the end of the day. Jay says, Tony, would you be interested in the GM job? How many fans want Tony Marinaro to be the GM of the Montreal Canadiens? Brendan?
Tony, we discussed this off air, and we said you have to stop having your relatives write in with questions. It's not acceptable. I mean, there's certainly realistic.
Kevin Ayer sounds like he's a relative of Marinaro. Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have anyone in my family named Jay.
No?
No. Okay. I do have a brother-in-law named James, though, by the way.
I love the idea. I mean, what's your relationship like with Jeff Molson?
I ask myself every day.
So I don't know. I mean, I think I
like him personally.
I say a duo.
I don't know how much he likes me.
Tony and Brendan.
I do know at the Tony Marinaro roast, he actually sent a video message.
Really?
Yeah.
Keep that phone close.
I don't know. But I will say this. As much as it would be an honor, I'm at a point in my life, 49 years old. I'll be 50 next year in November. Okay. Going forward, I want to work less and make more because I've worked a lot for many, many years.
You're not going to take that kind of pay cut. Let's just put it right out there.
No. I'm not making that much money, but I'm making money.
Where's your party going to be next November?
But going forward, I want to work less and make more, not be the GM of the Montreal Canadiens and work 20 hours a day.
Look at what happened to Marc Bergevin. He aged like 25 years.
I still look the same. Look at me.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
The hair, bluish green eyes.
Dorian Gray.
Steve Daniels says Tony is on fire. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hey,
there's no question of that.
We went for an hour.
Wow.
Pretty cool, right?
Look who's showing up.
Non-stop, no commercials, no nothing. This is not an easy thing to do. But you and I, we're the real deal, man. I told you. Oh, all right. Perfect.
Callie.
Let Callie bark.
I don't know. She's going to lick my face.
Does she bite?
No.
Does she bark?
She barks, yeah, if she sees a cat. But you know what she's saying? She says, come on. Yeah. Come on, Daddy. It's been an hour.
Yeah.
I want to go out. I want to run.
All right. Just like the Habs, all bark, no bite.
Exactly.
He's Brendan Kelly. I'm Marinaro. Have a great Sunday. Brunchin with Marinaro. It's a sick podcast. Follow us on our Facebook page. Follow us on our Instagram handle. And follow us on YouTube. Subscribe. It's free. And the beauty of it, more people sign up, more advertising, more money we make. The Sick Podcast. Patso!